Hello, everyone. This is the Theories of Innovation and Creativity class for the Innovation and Entrepreneurship Master's Program at Full Sail University. Welcome. And today we are going to be talking about the Innovation Process Sketch Assignment. This is your instructor, Jill Craddock, and you've got an assignment coming up due to sketch out an innovation process. So the purpose of this assignment is basically to have a visual representation to guide your team and guide yourself into constantly thinking big. So think of it as an inspirational sort of art piece kind of hanging on the wall all the time to remind you of how you can get from point A to point B and think innovatively. Okay, so that's the purpose. It's just like a one pager for you to visualize and think in spatial terms of who's doing what and how are we going to innovate using our ideas. How are we going to make them economical and effective in the marketplace? Okay, so by now, you've probably done what I would do if I were in your shoes, which is to Google search innovation process sketch, which is a great idea, except for you would come up with this if you did this today. There are so many. So how are you going to get an A on this assignment? But really, more importantly, how are you going to do it right that's going to benefit you and your company? What you're looking at right now probably won't do the job. So we're going to just talk about ways. We're going to look at your rubric closely, and we're going to talk about why that's important for your company. So right here, this is innovation process sketch, what you'll come out with. And this is innovation process, okay? So the innovation process looks a little bit nicer than the innovation process sketch. In your assignment, it does say, just FYI, please do start with, writing on the back of a napkin, writing on a ripped out piece of notebook paper. That's a great idea, but please do turn in a professional product. You can use Google Draw. You can use tools in any of your Microsoft Office suite. Anything that you want to that you're familiar with and comfortable with, but do turn in something that is computerized so that we can all read it and have a nice visual piece of work to get started with. So where are you going to start with this? First of all, always start with the instructions. So let's just go straight from the top. I'm going to go through the assignments through the rubric with you. And let's only talk about the superior. I've highlighted areas in only the superior. I mean, I'm not going to tell you how to do an average assignment or even an above average assignment. I'm going to tell you how to do get an A on this deal. Okay, so first, a written overview. I'm looking for just like a page. I should not have to read very long. Your sketch should be good enough that a person can look at it, get the basic idea, and maybe only do a little bit of reading. Okay, so if it goes longer than a page, revisit your sketch or revisit what you're writing and see where you really need to clarify. Okay, so just one page, and make sure that you address all parts of your sketch in that written overview. Okay, trying to decide what you're going to measure. To get the full points here, the word is clearly defined. Okay, clearly defined objectives and metrics. So what are you going to measure? That's up to you based on your company and your process and your strategies that you've got going, and that's going to be different for everybody. But I will tell you this, that almost every company, when they're developing something new related to a new innovation, is measuring something to do with time or money. Okay, time or money. That is almost always what your innovation process will measure. Okay, so what are you going to do in this innovation process sketch? How are you going to actually accomplish a savings of money or savings of time to get your product or your process or your strategy out into the marketplace and do something different? How are you going to get there? I liked this image when I searched the innovation process in the Google images. This came out with a lot of like action-oriented thing. I thought that was really cool. So key process activity and action. This shows people in action, which is great. So you can see there's a lot of activity here, and this is a great way to think in terms of people getting work accomplished. And you can see that the flow of this chart, you can see that it's a very linear process. You've got a problem here, people working together and then implementing, and you can see it's measuring profit. I mean, it's not really measuring clearly in this particular chart. Something else I wanted to point out in this particular chart is in the bottom here on the right hand side. It says corporate innovation equals implementation of creative ideas in order to generate value, usually through reduced process costs, increased income, or both. Okay, so the reason I'm pointing that out is because one of the requirements in this particular assignment is that you utilize text annotations. Okay, so this is an example of a text annotation. So you would get credit for using text annotation in this particular piece. If this were your chart, you would have the color and the text annotation here. So keep that in mind. That's what we mean by a text annotation. And this is a great example of action. Okay, now, is this right? Sometimes people will have questions. Is this right? Am I doing it right? Because there are so many charts out there. So the issue here with this particular one is we don't have any defined objectives or defined metrics. There are some process and activities and actions, but it's not really clear what they go along with. Okay, create what, evaluate what, fund what. Okay, so I show you this because it looks pretty good at first. You know, it's very professionally presented, but I do want you to keep in mind these kind of verbs. These action verbs that can go along with your business plan, but this particular chart can be a little confusing. So look at this, see how this is confusing, and look back at what you're doing, okay? Okay, does your actual chart make sense? What you saw before? Well, I'm not so sure. Does this flow? Which direction is it going? The arrows are pointing every which way, including in a circle. So double check with what you've got. Back here, this was very linear, okay? Goes from left to right, and at the end of it all, we've got profit. Here, I'm not really sure which way to look. So check and make sure that your flow and your sequence of activity has a very clear representation, that it goes from one step to the next, okay? And if it doesn't, that it's clear which way it goes next, if it's not linear. Okay, the responsible parties. Each person has to be, this is a basic project management concept, but if you're using this chart, which I hope that you do, to guide your team and to guide yourself into action, if you don't have action items assigned to people, then things don't get done. So if everybody assumes everybody else is in charge of creating, evaluating, prototyping, and so forth, then the purpose for this part of the assignment is to clearly identify that owner. During my time in project management, one of the most effective things I could do is when we pulled everyone together as a project manager, and sometimes as a manager of creating innovation in an organization, you don't have a direct hammer over everybody. You're not the boss of everybody. So a great thing to do is to pull publicly on a screen or an email or what have you, a color-coded chart that says action items. You know, that red means it's held up, green means it's a go, and yellow means we're waiting. And if it's somebody's name and there's a red or a yellow, that's kind of a little bit of embarrassment. So make sure that we have responsible parties, and that will really help things move along. Here's an example of a chart that has excellent flow, but it does not have responsible parties. I also included this chart as an example for you, this process sketch, because it does not have the text annotation that I mentioned earlier, but it does have a key, a legend or key, we call it. And that's another piece that you're required to look at here. You can see the different shades of like kind of greenish, bluish here going on. So the greenish is the processes, and you can see the trend spotting and the arrow up top and how that flow operates. And then you see kind of the aqua and the data software pieces. So that's really helpful to the person who's viewing the chart to have a key and a legend of where those colors and how that matches up. So make sure that you include for full credit. That's a piece of a requirement too, that both the text annotation and the key and the legend. Okay. Okay, and considering the exchange where the product information is exchanged, so back here, it's pretty clear. Whenever you see an arrow going back and forth, you can assume that product data is being exchanged between those teams. This is a really good chart. It is not labeled with the responsible parties, and it really doesn't have a whole lot in terms of the actions. On top it does, but in the data and software pieces, it does not. But we're getting there. We're definitely getting there. So make sure your arrows clearly delineate the exchange of information. Final touches to remember, like I said, the color, using color, text annotations, a key and a legend is important. Grammar and spelling, I'm sure won't be an issue, but do double check that before your final submission. And here it is, we're getting closer. This is in your reading for the week. You've probably already gotten to it by now. But this is in the innovation process chapter that you downloaded. And this is the actual process that they show you. So this is, if you were to submit something like this, you still, believe it or not, this does not have everything that this particular assignment is looking for. And based on what we have talked about, it does have a defined objective and metrics, because right now at the bottom right hand corner I told you everything could be measured basically in time or money. So on the bottom right hand corner there we've got sales. Are there key process activities and action? Well, a little bit. You got some research. That's a process and activity. You can clearly see a flow. All that research, or all that flow of arrows going back and forth and circular, that's where information is going back and forth. It's a constant process that's going on. Responsible parties are not identified, and it's clear where the information and data is exchanged, okay? And these are the three parts, okay? The context, this is where the R&D, research and development, is taking place, and the payoff, okay? So we're definitely getting there. We're on the right track. Do make sure that you get to that part in your reading, and that should help you with putting your innovation process chart together that will help you tailor it to your company and specifically to your needs. And I'd like to know how you're applying it to your company in your write-up. I'm very interested in that, and I look forward to seeing your work tailored to this assignment. So don't forget your color, your key, your legend, flow and sequence of activities, key process, defining your metrics, responsible parties, so on and so forth. Double check everything with your rubric, and I'm looking forward to a product that will be not only great for this class, but something that will carry you forward. So please reach out to me if you need me, and I look forward to talking with you soon. Thanks.